All right, so next we need to build this click change slide function. This one's pretty easy. So anytime that one of these buttons are clicked, we're going to, the first thing is we're going to stop the clear timeout function that's taking place. So we want to stop the carousel from automatically going. Right, so we're going to go ahead and say slide timer. Now that's why we saved the result. So what was returned when we called the set timeout function is basically an ID, slide timer, and then that's going to be passed into the clear timeout function in order to stop that specific timer. We're passing the ID as the parameter. All right, so we do that, and then just so that we could see, we're going to go ahead and say console.log n. We want to know what it is that's being passed, and then we're going to, or let's make this more clear. We'll say this is, and then n, or we'll say plus n. All right, and then the last thing is we're going to call the change slide function again, but this time, you know, we're calling it, passing in the n value, and then we're also going to be saying that's true. We are running manual. So it's true, and we are running manual. So what exactly does that mean? Well, if we look here, we're checking if manual is true. In this case, it is true. We need to do a couple of things. So the first one is that we need to say, we'll start off and say I equals n. Right? We want the I value to equal n, which is whatever we passed in. So let's work on the HTML to have this make sense. The first one we're going to work with is we're going to work with the specific dots. So we will say onClick equals change slide. Oh, click change slide. I missed that part. Click change slide, and the n value we're going to set for this one is going to be 1. Right, or we'll put it to 0 since that's the value of it in the array. And then we will copy this and add it to all of them. All right, and we're going to go 3, 2, and 1. So now when I click on this, we're going to see something come up here. So let's try this out. Click, and I got something. This is 0. This is 1. So you could already see that the function is working, where it's going to the specific slides that I want. When I want 1, I click that. 2, 3, 4, 2, 4. Great, so we have that going. But we also want this to work. So we can go ahead and do more or less the same. We will go and say onClick. All right, let's widen this so that we see everything at once. It's progressively getting smaller, but we're good. We'll widen this and we'll say onClick, click change slide. For this one, we're going to go ahead and say I plus or minus 1. And then we're going to say I plus 1. And what we should get is this relatively the same effect. So 4, 3, 2, 1. Here's the weird part. If I click again, we're not able to continuously go backwards. We're kind of broken. Well, what happened? Well, let's go back to the JavaScript. Here's what happened. When we go backwards, we're saying I plus 1. Or sorry, I minus 1, I minus 1, I minus 1. Well, here we're saying console.log I. Let's remove this. All right, and we'll try and run this again. So it's at 3. Let's pay attention to what's being displayed in the console. So 3. Oh, we have the automatic. So you can see now we're at 0. We went 3, 2, 1, 0. We go again, -1. We go again, -1. Right? So the issue here is that we're not setting a lower boundary. So in here, we're going to do some checks. If manual is true, then we're going to check to see if n is less than 0. And if n is less than 0, then I is going to equal slides.length minus 1. So if n is less than 0, we want to go all the way back to the last slide, number 4. All right, that's the first one. The next one is else if. We want to check another condition. And we're going to say if n is greater than slides.length minus 1, then I is going to equal 0, because we want it to loop back around to here. And finally, if neither of those cases are true, then I is just going to equal n, because I falls within the range. And so that should work. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And going backwards, 4, 3, 2, 1. Perfect. So that's all working out. Nice. All right, so we got all the functionality working, but there's one thing that's missing. This has a kind of cool effect where it's sliding across. Shoop. We want that effect. The way we get that effect is by playing around with the CSS again. So we're going to go back and we are going to play with the CSS, add a few more features, and finish this thing up.